I never thought I'd be the kind of guy who would get blindsided by betrayal. My name is Mike, and I've been married to Jessica for 5 years. We had what I thought was a solid relationship, built on love, trust, and shared dreams of the future. Sure, we had our little bumps along the way, what marriage does, but we always talked things through. At least, that's what I believed. The first sign that something was off came during one of our regular date nights. We'd been looking forward to an evening out, just the two of us. But when I got home from work, Jessica was unusually distant. She had this strange tension in her voice when she said she needed to finish up some work before we headed out. That was odd because she usually loved our Friday nights together. As the weeks passed, that distance grew. She started coming home late more often, claiming work meetings and happy hours with her colleagues. I tried to be understanding, but every time she texted at odd hours or forgot to return my calls, a little voice in the back of my head nagged at me. It was like I was ignoring warning bells that were ringing louder each day. I asked her about it, but she always brushed it off, saying I was being paranoid. "You know I love you, Mike. Don't be ridiculous," she'd say, rolling her eyes. Then came the evening that changed everything. I was cleaning out the garage, and while I was rummaging through some old boxes, I stumbled upon her old phone. She had gotten a new one a few months back, but I had never thought to look at the old one. Curiosity got the better of me. I swiped it on, and for some reason it didn't require a password. The moment I opened it, my heart sank. There were text messages from someone named Dave that made my blood run cold. They weren't just innocent chats, they were intimate, flirty, and downright graphic. I felt my stomach drop as I read lines that I should never have had to see, things about meeting up, sweet nothings exchanged in the dead of night, and plans that left no room for me. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My hands shook and I felt sweat trickling down my back. All the little things I had ignored suddenly made sense. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the way her demeanor had changed. It was like I had been living in a fog, and now everything was painfully clear. I was standing in that garage, feeling like my whole world was crumbling around me. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront her right away, or should I gather more evidence? A part of me wanted to scream, to shake her and demand answers, but I also felt a strange urge to remain calm, to think things through before making a scene. After about an hour of pacing back and forth, my mind racing, I finally decided I had to confront her. I couldn't let this go unanswered. I wanted to hear her side, to see if she would own up to what I had just discovered. The thought of it made my heart race even faster. I arrived home, trying to keep my emotions in check. Jessica was in the kitchen, sipping on a glass of wine, looking as if everything was perfectly normal. How could she act like that when I had just unearthed a bombshell that could shatter everything? "Hey, can we talk?" I said, my voice slightly trembling. She turned to me, a flicker of concern passing through her eyes, but then she smiled. "Sure, what's up?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. I needed to approach this carefully. I opened my mouth to begin, but the words caught in my throat. I couldn't just throw accusations without giving her a chance to deny them. Instead, I steered the conversation toward her late nights, her recent behavior. "Lately, it feels like you've been really busy with work, and I just want to know what's going on." Jessica rolled her eyes but didn't seem defensive. "Oh, come on, Mike. You know how it is. I'm just working hard. It's not like I'm doing anything wrong." And that's when I decided to drop the bomb. I pulled out the old phone, holding it up like evidence in a trial. "Then what's this?" I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. Her face paled, and in that moment I saw the mask shatter. The anger, the defensiveness, it all melted away, replaced by a look of disbelief. "Where did you get that?" she stammered, her arrogance slipping. The confrontation was far from what I had imagined. Jessica tried to backtrack, throwing out excuses that made no sense, like how this was all just harmless flirting or that she was unhappy and I didn't pay enough attention to her. It felt like a slap in the face, hearing her twist her actions into something that was somehow my fault. As I listened to her empty words, I felt a mix of anger and sorrow. I had loved this woman deeply, and here she was, spinning lies like they were the truth. I was devastated. The realization hit me hard. The woman I thought I knew, the one I had built a life with, was nothing more than a stranger hiding behind a facade. I felt the walls closing in around me as I tried to process everything. I had trusted her completely, and now I was left with a hollow feeling of betrayal. The situation had spiraled into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from, and I was left grappling with what to do next. It was clear I needed a plan. I didn't just want to confront her with my pain. I wanted her to understand the gravity of her choices, to feel the sting of her betrayal. But that would require a level of cunning I wasn't sure I possessed. I needed to be smart about it. I decided it was time for revenge. How could I make her feel the same way I did? How could I turn the tables and give her a taste of her own medicine? I was determined to make her feel the pain she had caused me. But the question lingered. How far was I willing to go to make that happen? The last thing I wanted was to lose myself in this dark place. But as the night wore on and the anger simmered, I found myself plotting my next move, unsure of where this path would lead me. In the end, the only thing I knew for sure was that my life would never be the same again. The emotional journey ahead would be fraught with challenges and complexities, but I was ready to face it head-on. I had been wronged, and there was no way I was going to let her get away with it. The game was on, and I was determined to play it to the end. After the confrontation with Jessica, I spent the night pacing back and forth in our living room, my mind racing. I was a bundle of emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, but mostly I felt a deep-seated rage boiling just beneath the surface. I never imagined I'd be in this position, feeling so powerless and betrayed by the one person I thought I could trust the most. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thoughts began to crystallize. I needed to act, to regain some control in a situation where I felt completely powerless. I spent the next few days pretending everything was normal. Jessica went about her routine, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I watched her, studied her movements like a predator observing its prey. She still rushed off to her meetings and returned home later than usual, often with the same rehearsed smile that had once made my heart flutter. But now it made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, to force her to understand the damage she was causing. Yet, I also knew I had to be strategic. I couldn't let my emotions drive my actions. I had to think clearly if I wanted my revenge to be meaningful. I started by gathering information. I began to document her movements and behaviors meticulously. I took notes on when she left, when she came home, and any oddities I noticed. I soon discovered a pattern. She would leave on Thursday evenings under the guise of a work dinner and wouldn't return until the early hours of the morning. I was convinced that Thursday was her designated night with Dave. The more I learned, the more I felt the anger boiling over. I needed to expose her, not just to myself, but to everyone around her. The next step involved technology. I had some basic knowledge of spying apps and decided to track her phone. It felt wrong, like I was crossing a line, but I told myself that she had already crossed it first. I figured out how to install a tracking app on her old phone without her knowing, allowing me to monitor her whereabouts in real time. It felt like I was playing a game of cat and mouse, and I was determined not to lose. The following Thursday arrived, and I was ready. I waited until she had left for what I assumed was another rendezvous with her lover. As soon as she was out the door, I grabbed my car keys and set off. I needed to follow her to see for myself if my suspicions were true. It was a gamble, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins fueled my resolve. I knew where she was headed. There was a bar downtown that she often mentioned in passing, saying it was great for networking. As I drove closer, my heart raced with every passing block. The bar was nestled in a busy part of town, surrounded by other shops and restaurants, and as I parked my car, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to witness. I didn't want to confront her just yet. I needed to gather evidence to document this betrayal in the rawest form possible. I stepped out of the car and cautiously made my way toward the entrance, my pulse pounding in my ears. Once inside, I scanned the room, looking for Jessica. The bar was lively, filled with laughter and chatter, but my eyes were focused only on one person. And then I spotted her leaning casually against the bar, laughing and flirting with none other than Dave. My stomach twisted into knots. She looked completely at ease, a stark contrast to the turmoil inside me. I felt like a ghost in that moment, invisible to the world around me. I ducked behind a wall, trying to steady my breathing. It was surreal to see her like that, her laughter ringing out like music while my heart shattered into a million pieces. She was so engrossed in conversation with him that she didn't even notice when I slipped my phone out and started recording. I kept my distance, capturing the moments that felt like a punch to the gut. There was an intimacy in the way they leaned toward each other, the way her hand touched his arm. It was everything I had thought was ours. I spent nearly an hour watching them, the realization of her betrayal sinking deeper with each passing moment. I recorded their flirtation, the closed-off world they shared in that bar, with my heart heavy in my chest. I felt like a voyeur, but at the same time this was my truth. I had to see it with my own eyes to truly understand the extent of her infidelity. When I finally stepped out of the bar, my mind was racing. I felt a mix of triumph for having gathered evidence and a crushing weight of despair. I had what I needed. Now I just had to choose how to use it. The plan was shaping in my mind like a dark cloud, and I found myself smiling at the thought of revenge. I would expose her for who she really was, not just to me but to everyone in her life. She would no longer be able to hide behind her lies. That night I returned home, my heart still heavy with the knowledge of what I had witnessed. Jessica arrived a short while later, her laughter echoing through the house, blissfully unaware of my discovery. I played it cool, acting as if everything was fine, while inside I was burning with rage. I knew I had to wait for the right moment to unleash my findings. Timing would be everything. The days passed in a haze. I kept up the facade, engaging in small talk, laughing at her jokes, and pretending everything was normal, but every time she touched me or smiled, a wave of anger surged through me. I was playing a dangerous game and I knew it, but I couldn't stop myself. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal. Finally, the weekend rolled around and I knew the time had come to execute my plan. I decided to throw a small gathering at our place, inviting a few close friends of ours, including some of Jessica's closest friends who had no idea what was really going on. It was the perfect opportunity to confront her in front of others, to show her that I wouldn't be the silent victim anymore. As I prepared for the evening, I felt a mixture of nerves and exhilaration. I knew this would change everything, and I was ready to take that leap. I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized that I had seen everything. The moment she stepped into that room with the people she cared about, everything would change. I stood in the living room, waiting for our friends to arrive, the old phone in my pocket feeling heavier than ever. The time for secrets was over. I was ready to reveal the truth and let Jessica feel the consequences of her choices. The thrill of revenge was intoxicating, and I felt a sense of power surge within me. I was taking back control, and I was determined to make her understand the depth of her betrayal. I couldn't wait to watch it all unfold. As the evening approached, I made sure everything was set for our gathering. The living room was arranged to be inviting, with candles lit and drinks laid out. I wanted the setting to feel like a celebration, and little did Jessica know, it was going to be anything but. I had invited a few of our closest friends, the kind of friends who would stand by me, but also the kind who had no idea that Jessica was hiding a dark secret. When the doorbell rang, I felt a rush of adrenaline course through me. I opened the door to greet our friends, putting on a smile that masked the turmoil brewing inside me. Jessica joined me, her face lighting up with excitement as she hugged everyone, totally blissful and unaware of what was coming. She was still in her element, seemingly having no thoughts of her recent escapades. As the night progressed, I played the perfect host, engaging in light conversation, exchanging laughs and making sure everyone had drinks in hand. I could feel Jessica's energy, her laughter ringing out across the room, and for a moment I almost forgot the chaos that was about to unfold. But the anger simmered just beneath the surface, ready to erupt. I had planned this carefully, waiting for the right moment when everyone was relaxed, drinks were flowing, and the mood was merry. After about an hour, I watched Jessica mingle with our friends, her laughter and charm drawing everyone in. I waited patiently until the moment felt right, a moment when the atmosphere was lively, perfect for a shocking revelation. Gathering everyone to the living room, I cleared my throat to get their attention. "Hey everyone, can I have your attention for a moment? I have something I want to share." My voice was steady, but inside I felt a whirlwind of emotions. All eyes were on me, and I could see the curiosity reflected in their faces. Jessica's smile faded slightly as she picked up on my serious tone. "What is it, Mike?" she asked, her voice slightly laced with concern. "Jessica and I have been together for 5 years," I began, trying to keep my tone neutral while my heart raced. "And I thought I knew everything about her, but it turns out I've been living a lie." The room fell silent, the laughter evaporating like mist. I could see the confusion on everyone's faces, but I pressed on. "You see, while I've been working hard to support our life together, Jessica has been busy with someone else." I pulled out the old phone, holding it up for everyone to see, and continued. "This is Jessica's old phone. And on it, I found text messages from a guy named Dave, a guy she's been seeing behind my back." Gasps echoed through the room as I began to scroll through the texts I had recorded, displaying snippets of the messages on the screen for everyone to see. I watched as Jessica's face turned white, the shock and realization dawning on her as she realized the depth of my knowledge and the evidence I was presenting. "Mike, please," she began, her voice shaky, but I interrupted her. "No. Jess, you don't get to play the victim here. You thought you could hide this from me, from everyone." I gestured to our friends, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. "But here we are. This is the reality of your choices." Jessica's expression shifted from shock to fury, her defenses kicking in. "You had no right to go through my things. You're such a jerk for doing this. I can't believe you'd humiliate me like this in front of our friends." As she raised her voice, I could feel the tension mounting in the room. "Humiliate you?" I shot back, my voice rising to match hers. "You've humiliated me. You've betrayed our marriage. I'm just shining a light on the truth you've been keeping in the dark." I felt a mixture of satisfaction and anger as I watched her struggle with the consequences of her actions. Friends looked uncomfortable, unsure of how to react, but I could see the betrayal etched in their faces as they turned to Jessica, seeking answers. "Is this true, Jess?" one of our mutual friends, Sarah, asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I could see Jessica's confidence faltering, and for a moment she hesitated, looking around at our friends who were awaiting her response. "No, it's not what it looks like," she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "I mean, yes, I've been talking to Dave, but it's not like that. You have to believe me. Jessica, this isn't just talking. You've been meeting him." I challenged, my heart racing as I continued. "You made a choice to betray me, and now you're trying to twist it around to make it seem like I'm the bad guy for exposing you." The room was filled with an unsettling silence. I could feel the weight of the truth settling in, a palpable tension hanging in the air. I knew I was taking a risk, but I wanted her to face the reality of her actions, to be forced to confront the damage she had done. "Mike, please," she pleaded, her eyes wide with desperation. "You can't just throw our marriage away because of a few mistakes. I was upset and I made some bad choices, but that doesn't mean I don't love you." "How can you say that?" I replied, incredulous. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have done this. This isn't just a few mistakes. It's a betrayal that cuts deep. This is your chance to own your choices." Our friends exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the drama unfolding before them. I could see the disappointment on their faces, and part of me felt a pang of regret. But I knew I couldn't back down now. I had exposed her lies, and there was no turning back. "Mike, I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking as tears began to form in her eyes. "I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened." I shook my head, my heart heavy with the weight of her words. "You can't just brush it off like it was nothing. You don't get to erase this." With her back against the wall, Jessica stood there, her facade crumbling as she realized the full extent of the consequences of her choices. I had exposed her for who she really was, and I felt a bittersweet satisfaction at having taken control back. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feelings of sadness and betrayal. I had wanted revenge, but now, standing in the aftermath, I also felt a sense of emptiness. I had won this round, but I knew there would be more battles ahead, and the war would take a toll on both of us. As our friends began to leave, offering their apologies and support, I was left alone with Jessica, the silence between us heavy and suffocating. I had revealed her truth, but now I was left to grapple with what that meant for our future. I wanted to scream, to cry, to process everything that had happened, but all I could do was stand there, watching the remains of our life together unravel before my eyes. In that moment, I realized that revenge wasn't as sweet as I had imagined. It was messy, complicated, and left a bitter taste in my mouth. I had taken my power back, but at what cost? As I stared at the woman I once loved, I knew I had a decision to make. What would I do next? How would I navigate the aftermath of this betrayal? The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew I had to face it head on. The hardest part was still yet to come. The aftermath of that night was a blur. Jessica and I hardly spoke in the days following the confrontation. The once vibrant atmosphere of our home felt tense and charged with unresolved emotions. For the first time, I could see the cracks in our relationship laid bare, and it was unsettling. There was no us anymore. It was just me and the memory of who we had been, and the ghost of what we could have been if things hadn't gone so horribly wrong. In the days that followed, I found myself grappling with a cocktail of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, and perhaps a hint of relief. I had confronted her, and I had exposed her lies, but now I was left with the reality of my choices. What should I do now? Did I want to fight for our marriage, or was this the tipping point for me? Jessica had taken to avoiding serious conversations. She spent her time in the bedroom or out with friends, pretending that life was normal while I wallowed in my own thoughts. I could hear her on the phone sometimes, her voice light and carefree, as if everything was fine. It felt like a slap in the face. Each laugh I heard was a reminder of the betrayal, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of bitterness. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I finally decided I couldn't continue like this. I needed answers, and so did she. We both needed closure, whatever that looked like. I walked into the bedroom where she was sitting on the bed, lost in thought. She looked up at me, her expression uncertain. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. She nodded, and I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. I don't want to keep pretending everything's fine. We need to figure out what comes next. Jessica looked away for a moment, and I could see the turmoil behind her eyes. "I know I messed up, Mike. I've been thinking about everything since that night. I realize now how much I hurt you, and I'm really sorry." I took a moment to process her words, trying to gauge her sincerity. "Sorry doesn't really cut it, Jess. You made a choice to be with someone else. You betrayed me and our relationship. I need to know why." She sighed, running her hands through her hair. "I was feeling lost, okay? I thought I was unhappy in our marriage, and I didn't know how to communicate that. I made a horrible mistake. I never meant to hurt you." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her that her excuses didn't matter. "You could have talked to me, Jess. We could have worked through things together. Instead, you chose to sneak around." "I know," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I'm not trying to justify my actions. I didn't realize how much I'd hurt you until it was too late." I paused, searching for the right words. "Do you think I can just forget what you've done? You've shattered my trust. I don't even know if I can be in the same room with you without feeling sick." Her eyes glistened with tears. "I understand, and I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. I don't want to lose you, Mike." I looked at her, trying to determine if there was any sincerity in her plea. "What does that even mean? What are you willing to do? You can't just say sorry and expect everything to magically fix itself." "I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever you need me to do. I'll cut all ties with Dave, I promise," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. "I want to fix this. I love you." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and charged. Love. The very word felt tainted now. I wasn't sure if I could still believe it coming from her lips. But there was a part of me that wanted to hold on, that wanted to believe she could change. I still cared for her, and the thought of giving up on our marriage felt monumental. But I also knew I needed to protect myself. I had to set boundaries. If we're going to try to work through this, I need space. I need time to process everything. This isn't something I can just forgive overnight. "Okay," she said, her voice softening. "I understand. Just know that I'm here, and I'll do anything to prove to you that I can be better." As I took a step back, I felt a mix of hope and uncertainty. Perhaps we could find a way forward together, but the road would be long and fraught with challenges. I needed to see if she was truly committed to making changes, and I also needed to confront my own feelings about the situation. In the weeks that followed, we began to navigate this precarious territory. Jessica kept her word about cutting ties with Dave, and she started attending therapy sessions. I tried to give her the space she needed, but also kept my distance emotionally. Each day was another test of my resolve. I watched as she fought to prove her commitment, and while a part of me wanted to believe in her sincerity, another part of me remained fiercely guarded. I began going to therapy myself, trying to make sense of my emotions and the betrayal I had experienced. It helped me sort through my feelings of anger and hurt, and I realized that healing would take time, time that I needed to allow myself. I also started to see the impact of Jessica's actions on my own self-worth. I had let her deceit shatter my confidence, but I was determined to rebuild it. Despite the emotional roller coaster, we occasionally found moments of connection. We went on walks, revisited old haunts, and talked about the things we used to enjoy together. I could see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, and it gave me hope. But then the thought of her infidelity would crash back in like a wave, drowning those hopeful moments in despair. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would race, wondering if it would be a message from her or a reminder of the past. I had to confront the shadows of doubt that loomed over us, and I found myself battling the urge to check her phone or track her movements again. I wanted to trust her, but the scars of betrayal were still fresh. One evening, as we sat on the couch together, I glanced over at Jessica, who was deeply engrossed in a book. I felt a mix of warmth and unease. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, noticing my gaze. "I don't know," I replied, hesitating. "I just wonder if we can ever really get back to where we were." She put the book down and turned to face me, her expression earnest. "I want that more than anything, Mike. I know I've destroyed your trust, but I'm committed to making this right. I want to rebuild what we had." "I want that too," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "But it's going to take time, it's going to take work on both of our parts, and we need to be honest with each other even when it's hard." She nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I promise I won't hide anything from you again. I'll be open about my feelings and I'll work on myself." I could see sincerity in her eyes, but I couldn't ignore the nagging doubts echoing in my mind. The path to healing felt like a tightrope walk, and I wondered if we would ever regain the trust we once shared. The work we had to do was daunting, but I hoped that if we both committed ourselves to the process, we could find a way forward together. As we sat in silence, I realized that the journey ahead would not be easy. But perhaps, just perhaps, there was a glimmer of hope on the horizon. I had fought for my own emotional well-being, and now I was ready to fight for our marriage. It was a new beginning, but it would come with its own set of challenges. Together, we would face whatever lay ahead, and this time I would be the one setting the pace. As the days turned into weeks, I felt like we were on a tightrope, precariously balancing between hope and despair. Each breakthrough Jessica made was accompanied by a wave of skepticism. I was torn between wanting to believe in her commitment to change and being haunted by the memories of her betrayal. Therapy sessions became a regular part of our lives, both together and separately, and they opened up conversations we'd previously avoided. One evening, we found ourselves sitting across from each other in our therapist's office. The atmosphere was heavy, filled with unspoken words and lingering tension. Jessica had been making progress in opening up about her feelings, but I still struggled to share my own. I had learned to put on a brave face, but deep down, the emotional scars were still fresh. "I feel like I'm stuck," I admitted during our session. "I want to move forward, but I can't shake the feeling of betrayal. It's like a shadow that follows me everywhere." Jessica nodded, her eyes glistening with understanding. "I know I've let you down, and I wish I could take back what I did. I'm trying to show you that I can be better. I just wish you could see it." The therapist interjected, "It's important for both of you to acknowledge your feelings. Mike, it's okay to feel hurt. And Jessica, it's essential that you continue to show you're committed to rebuilding trust." After the session, I felt emotionally drained but also somewhat lighter. There was something cathartic about sharing my feelings, even if it felt uncomfortable. I wanted to believe that we could make it through this. I wanted to believe that love could triumph over betrayal. As we left the therapist's office, I turned to Jessica. I think we're making progress, but it's not linear. There will be good days and bad days. I hope you're ready for that. I'm ready, she replied, her voice filled with sincerity. I'm committed to doing the work. I'll show you that I'm serious about us. The following weeks were a mix of breakthroughs and setbacks. There were moments when I felt a flicker of hope, and then there were days when the pain felt insurmountable. I still found myself checking my phone for messages at odd hours, my heart racing with suspicion. I struggled with the idea of trusting her again, and I knew I had to confront those feelings head-on. One evening, after a particularly challenging day, I found myself sitting on the patio, staring out into the darkness. Jessica joined me, her presence warm and comforting. "What's on your mind?" she asked gently. "I just don't know how to move past this," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I want to trust you, but every time I think we're getting closer, something pulls me back." She took a deep breath, her expression somber. "I understand, it's not easy. I'm trying to be open about my feelings, but I know I can't erase the past. I can only work toward a better future." "I want that too," I said, looking into her eyes. "But I need reassurance. I need to know that you're committed to doing this for real. It can't just be words." "I promise I'm committed," she replied, her voice quivering slightly. "I want to rebuild what we had. I want to earn your trust back." As we sat there in the quiet of the evening, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could find our way back to each other, despite the obstacles ahead. But I also recognized that it was going to take significant effort on both sides. I had to be honest with her about my feelings and insecurities, while she needed to show me through her actions that she was serious about changing. The following week, Jessica suggested we take a short trip together, a weekend getaway to a cabin in the woods. The idea was to reconnect away from the distractions of our daily lives. I hesitated at first, but then I realized that it might be just what we needed. A change of scenery could help us find some peace and clarity. As we drove to the cabin, I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. I wanted to enjoy this time together, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the past would loom over us like an uninvited guest. Once we arrived, the tranquility of the woods enveloped us, and I felt my mind ease slightly. We settled into the cabin, taking turns cooking meals and exploring the surrounding trails. I could see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the laughter, the joy, the connection we once shared. I began to let my guard down, cautiously allowing myself to enjoy the moment. One evening, as we sat around the fireplace, I felt a warmth settle in my chest. We had shared stories and laughed as we reminisced about our early days together. Good, it felt right. But then the shadows crept back in. I needed to address the elephant in the room. "Jess, can we talk about what happened?" I asked, my voice steady but edged with vulnerability. "Of course," she replied, her eyes locking onto mine. "I want to be open with you. I think I need to hear you talk about how you're feeling, not just about what happened, but about us moving forward," I said, taking a deep breath. She nodded, her expression serious. "I've been reflecting a lot. I realized how much I took for granted. My actions were selfish, and I never considered how they would hurt you. I feel terrible for the pain I caused." I watched her closely, searching for signs of authenticity. "It's going to take time for me to trust you fully again, I know that, but I need you to understand that I'm still figuring things out." "I understand, Mike. I'm willing to be patient," she said softly. "I'll do whatever it takes to show you that I'm serious about making things right." As we talked, I felt the warmth between us grow, a flicker of hope reigniting in my heart. It was as if we were rebuilding the foundation of our relationship, brick by brick, even if it felt fragile. Over the next few days, we enjoyed our time together, exploring the woods, cooking meals, and sharing laughter. We even revisited some of our favorite activities, like stargazing and playing board games, which had been a staple in our early relationship. Each moment felt like a small step forward, a reminder that perhaps we could rediscover the love we once had. Yet, there were still moments when doubt crept in. I couldn't help but wonder if I was just setting myself up for more heartache. I remembered the pain of betrayal, and it was a constant battle to keep my trust from slipping away. On the final night of our getaway, we sat by the fire, the flames crackling softly as we enjoyed the warmth. As I looked into the fire, I felt a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "I don't want to go back to the way things were before," I said, breaking the silence. "I want us to grow to be better together." "I want that too," Jessica replied, her gaze steady. "I know I have work to do, but I'm committed to this. I want to create a new chapter for us." The sincerity in her voice resonated deeply within me. It felt as though we were standing at the precipice of a new beginning, filled with uncertainty but also a sense of promise. As I stared into the fire, I knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was willing to take that leap of faith. We had a long road ahead, but perhaps together we could navigate it. After all, love isn't just about the moments of joy, it's also about weathering the storms together. With that thought in mind, I reached for her hand, intertwining my fingers with hers. In that connection, I felt a glimmer of hope for what was to come. As we returned home from our weekend getaway, the familiar surroundings felt different. There was a newfound sense of hope that lingered in the air, yet I still felt the weight of the past pressing down on my shoulders. The journey we had embarked upon was far from over. We were merely at the beginning of a long and winding road. In the days that followed, we made a conscious effort to implement the changes we had discussed. Jessica continued attending therapy, and I did too. We had set aside time each week to check in with each other, discussing our feelings, fears, and hopes. The more we communicated, the more I felt a sense of connection returning, even if it was tentative. But the journey was not without its bumps. There were days when the shadows of doubt loomed large, reminding me of the betrayal I had endured. I struggled with insecurities and fears, wondering if I could ever truly trust her. Again, there were moments when I would catch her smiling at her phone or lose myself in thoughts of her past mistakes, and the old feelings of anger and resentment would bubble to the surface. One evening during one of our check-ins, I brought up my concerns. "I find myself getting lost in thoughts about what happened. It's hard to shake off the feeling that you could hurt me again," I admitted, my voice heavy with vulnerability. Jessica looked at me with empathy in her eyes. "I understand. Trust is not something that can be rebuilt overnight. I'm committed to showing you that I can be trustworthy. Every day, I'm working on myself and our relationship." Her sincerity resonated within me, and I realized that acknowledging my feelings was part of my healing process. It was okay to voice my doubts. It was part of learning to trust again. Slowly, I began to shift my focus from the past to the present, reminding myself that we had both made a commitment to move forward together. As the weeks turned into months, we began to build a new rhythm. We incorporated date nights into our routine, revisiting places that held special memories while creating new ones. There were still moments of tension and awkwardness, but we learned to navigate them together. We talked openly about our feelings, and I found myself slowly letting go of the heaviness I had carried for so long. One evening, as we were cooking dinner together, I caught a glimpse of the woman I had fallen in love with. Jessica was laughing at a joke I had made, the light in her eyes shining bright. It was a stark reminder of the love that still existed beneath the surface. I felt a warmth in my chest that I hadn't experienced in a long time, a flicker of hope that perhaps we could rebuild what had been broken. One Saturday morning, as we were sipping coffee and enjoying the quiet of our home, Jessica turned to me with a serious expression. "I've been thinking a lot about how far we've come. I know it hasn't been easy, but I want you to know how grateful I am for your patience. You've given me a chance to prove myself, and it means the world to me." Her words stirred something deep within me. I realized that, despite the pain, we had emerged stronger, more connected than we had been in a long time. It wasn't just about mending the past, it was about forging a new future together. "I appreciate that, Jess," I replied, my heart feeling lighter. "We both have a long way to go, but I believe we can make it through. I want to keep working on this together." As the months rolled on, we continued to face challenges, but we also celebrated victories, no matter how small. We learned to cherish the moments of laughter and joy, recognizing that rebuilding trust is not just about avoiding past mistakes, it's about creating a foundation of open communication, vulnerability, and love. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I turned to her with a smile. "You know, I think we're really doing this. We're building something new." Jessica smiled back, a glimmer of hope shining in her eyes. "I feel that too. It hasn't been easy, but I can see us getting stronger every day." "I love you, Mike. I love you too, Jess." In that moment, I understood that love isn't about perfection. It's about growth, resilience, and the willingness to fight for each other. The scars of betrayal would always be a part of our story, but they no longer defined us. Instead, they served as a reminder of how far we had come and how much we had fought to rebuild our relationship. As we moved forward, I felt a sense of peace settling within me. The journey was far from over, but I was no longer afraid. I was ready to embrace the complexities of love, knowing that together we could face whatever lay ahead. We were writing a new chapter, one filled with hope, healing, and the promise of a brighter future. Together.